Hi, welcome to the 7th Live Subtitling and Accessibility Symposium. My name is Joshue O Connor from the W3C Web Accessibility Initiative, and I will be talking to you about real-time communication accessibility, user needs, and requirements. Firstly, a little bit about me. I've been working in accessibility for around 20 years and working in the area of standardization at W3C, various capacities for the last 12 of those 20 years. I'm very interested in the human and humane aspects of technology, what technology can do to support people. I love the design and engineering aspect of accessibility, and I love practical application, being able to build things that will really work for real users. So do remember that as we go through this presentation. Standards can often seem somewhat dry or academic or relation to policy, and all of those things are important. But at the end of the day, we are all working together to try to produce quality user experience and also remove barriers within the technical environment for people with disabilities. So much of the work that I do in W3C is done as a part of the Research Questions Task Force, which is a task force of the Accessible Platform Architecture Working Group. This working group provides support to various W3C groups to make sure that their specifications are accessible if they have produced a specification which touches on accessibility or may have an impact on accessibility. So if I talk about we, this is what I mean. So for some context, what is RTC? What is real-time communication? What are these applications? So WebRTC is a series of protocols developed in conjunction between the IETF, the Internet Engineering Task Force, and W3C. These protocols were designed to support direct browser-to-browser transfer of call information, but also other data. So they don't only enable better video and audio calls in a peer-to-peer type network, but they enable instant messaging, text chat, file exchange, screen sharing, and more. So very, very powerful and sophisticated suite of technologies. When we're talking about RTC applications in the context of accessibility, we're not, though, specifically just talking about WebRTC. There are other dependencies which exist, which we need to be aware of. So just for some context there. So RTC type applications are certainly becoming much more sophisticated and commonplace, particularly in the context of the global situation. We are using Zoom, we're using Skype, we're using these type of applications. What does this mean for people with disabilities? When we're talking about RTC type applications, of which they're just examples, this means that there is an imperative to make sure that these technologies are accessible to the broadest range of users. So there are challenges for users, including being able to use RTC applications with various input devices. This is important because a user of assistive technology may have a range of different assistive technologies. Some of the things that they will need to be able to do is to identify calls and caller ID in an accessible way. The routing of particular audio and controlling channel inputs and outputs as well is also something that's very important in the context of RTC. Dynamic audio description will also need to be supported. Other challenges include being able to make emergency calls, and real-time text or TT support is very, very important, particularly for people who are deaf and hard of hearing. In the context of an emergency call, this would be a main channel, a main point of communication for someone who's deaf and hard of hearing. RTT has replaced TTY type communications also. Video relay services may also be used, and then these will need to be supported by RTC type applications. The user may also need to identify, obviously, call participants and also their status, and there is something known as status polling, whereby a user making a call, say a conference call or some other meeting, will want to know, who's on the call, whether they're muted, unmuted, have a hand raised or not, this kind of thing. So live transcription and captioning support is important, as well as the need for personalization for users with cognitive disabilities. This is a very important area. So the ability to personalize or customize a user interface to be able to use symbol sets in tandem with a real-time communication application, for example. To address these challenges, W3C have published the RTC Accessibility User Requirements document. This is a working draft. We're now in the second version of this working draft, and we aim to publish this as a working group note, as a screenshot of the RTC Accessibility User Requirements document from the website. This lists accessibility user needs and requirements in RTC applications, and from these user needs we drafted a set of user requirements that may be implemented at a system or a platform level. How can we support accessible RTC? So first of all, one of the big things that came out of this is the need to support real-time text, particularly for people who are deaf and hard of hearing, the context of emergency calls, as I mentioned earlier. Also, the ability to route audio output to different sound cards or output devices is critically important. Supporting captioning and live transcription also is very, very important in the context of this workshop too. Transfer of alternate formats such as sign language, and also the user may need to be able to perform status polling so they can identify a user who is talking, whether they're muted, whether they have their hand raised, and so on when on the call. If you wish to comment on the ROWR, we would really like to hear from you. We have a GitHub repository, which I'm just showing now on screen, and this web address will be made available to everyone who's watching this. But please do log any issues, any comments that you have on the ROWR. We really want to hear from you. The feedback that we get helps us to make the note much better. We want to expand on the user needs that we've got. We want to have a clearer sense of any technical requirements. We also want to make sure that we're not missing anything. So please feel free to comment on the GitHub repository with the addresses that are available within the ROWR itself. Okay, thank you. I hope you found this interesting and enjoy the rest of the conference.